Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this satsang, this gathering in truth. I see some familiar faces and some I haven't met before. Welcome to you all. Feel free to turn on your camera if you like, although it's not required, of course. So many of you are familiar with this format, the Zoom format, and being in online satsangs like this. It should be pretty straightforward. I've been doing this for quite a long time. The format that I use in terms of the structure will have some guided meditation. Then I'll give a little talk for a while, and then we'll open it up to dialogue. And the dialogue, the discussion, the question and answer is usually a very rich time, opportunity to delve deeply into the questions that are of concern to you. So please make good use of that time together. Okay, and the questions don't need necessarily to be about what I talk about today, but we'll see how things go. So let's begin with some meditation. Okay, so sit comfortably. If you have any problems, technical problems, feel free to send me a chat or raise your hand, but otherwise I'll assume everything's good. Excuse me, I'm gonna get some water. Okie dokie. Here you are. So let yourself be comfortable. Let your body settle. There's no place else you need to be right now. There's nothing else you need to be doing. There are no screens you need to be attending to. No urgent texts. If you turn your cell phone off, that would probably be helpful. So you're not getting little bells and whistles. So let's set aside this time together as an opportunity to really turn our attention inward to our very own essential being. Okay? That's what satsang is about, right? Satsang means being together in truth. It's an opportunity to turn our attention away from all the externals that are constantly distracting us and requiring our time. And it's an opportunity to let go of all those concerns and let awareness reflect upon itself. Turn back upon itself. In Zen, we talk about taking the backward step that turns the light inwardly to illuminate the self. That's what satsang is about. That's what meditation are about. And initially, this can take the form of shifting awareness out of the thought factory in the neocortex, my teacher Jean Klein used to call it, to the sensate or sensate experience. So allowing awareness to drop out of the head into sensation. And a convenient way of doing this is to allow our awareness to descend to the breath. Mind is so insistent. Pay attention to me, pay attention to me. Now we can take a break. So just allow yourself to become aware of the coming and going of your breath, rising and falling of chest and belly, or the sensations of the nostrils as the breath enters and leaves. This isn't a means to some end in the future. This is it. Just being with what is happening, what you're experiencing right now. Not trying to retain anything, get anywhere. Simply allowing your awareness to rest on the sensations of the breath. If your attention wanders off and gets caught up in thought or emotion, story, narrative, drama, problem solving, just notice that without judgment and allow awareness to return to the breath. You're not focusing or concentrating, you're just being aware. You're not trying to stop thinking. Thoughts will come and go as you sit with the breath. Only when you've lost the connection with the breath that you come back. This is a foundational practice in Buddhist tradition, and some people spend their lifetimes, their whole lifetime, doing this practice, mindfulness of the breath. But we can just use that as a preliminary practice as we allow awareness to naturally expand in all directions, no longer controlling awareness, no longer manipulating it, no longer practicing with it in some way. First, allowing your awareness to open to the full range of bodily sensation, not focusing on the breath, just opening to sensation, not editing, not concentrating, not picking and choosing, just open to the experience, the sensate experience of the body, just as it is. Usually we're editing, picking certain sensations over others, avoiding others. Just open, without judgment, without manipulation. Enjoy your sensation, your sensate experience. You may notice ordinarily conventional wisdom says you are in your body. But isn't it really the case that the body, the experience of the body is in you, in your awareness? Huh? You are the awareness in which the bodily felt experience is taking place. Now let go of any boundaries that you may have created around your awareness. Just let awareness expand in its natural way. In fact, it's never been contracted, but just allow yourself to join the infinite awareness that's already taking place. Let go of any strictures on your awareness, any manipulation, any control. Opening completely in every direction. Not excluding anything. Everything is included. Complete relaxation of awareness. If it's helpful, you can imagine visualizing it expanding or sensing it expanding, feeling it expanding beyond the boundaries of the body, opening out infinitely in every direction. It's often likened to the sky-like nature of mind, of awareness. Mind like the sky, awareness like the sky. The sky does not exclude anything, right? Balloons, birds, planes, clouds, all are included. Now let yourself rest as this global, unlimited, non-locatable awareness. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to pretend it's already taking place. Just allow it. You are that. Everything is included in you. Even what you take to be a person, the thoughts, the beliefs, the memories, the bodily sensations, is just another arising in what you are. unlimited awareness, boundaryless, unlocatable, all inclusive. This is the most advanced form of meditation, the ultimate meditation, to rest as awareness. It's a non-doing. Awareness is your natural condition, your natural state, your essential nature. And so meditation becomes an opportunity to come home, to rediscover and rest as who you really are. Huh? Now, of course, depending on where you are in your own evolution, you may not experience it that way, but you can approximate it. You can approach it in the way that we've described today, beginning with awareness of the breath, letting go of any boundaries, just opening, and letting go even of the activity of opening, and just resting, right? Letting it all be as it is, right? Because from the perspective of who we really are, there's no problem. Nothing needs to be changed. So we'll talk about that today. That's kind of on topic. But this is an approach to meditation which is a little different from what's usually done in many traditions. In the Tibetan tradition, this is called non-meditation, ultimately. Anything that you're doing that is meditation is not true meditation, because true meditation is our natural state. It can only be joined, remembered, rediscovered, not done, huh? Not performed, not practiced. Okay. So, any questions about specifically about that? Any other about meditation? We'll have and about what we've just done. We'll have plenty of time later for other, excuse me, questions. But anything now about this? Those of you who have been exploring meditation and may wonder about this, feel free to raise your hands. You'd have to make yourself visible to raise your hands. But anyway. Okay, sounds like we're good. Excuse me. So good. Very good. Okay. So there's a lovely little koan. As many of you know, I practiced as a Zen monk for 10 years and did koan practice for a number of those years. Mostly, I don't think I made head or tail of the tradition, really, but every now and then one would really, I wasn't a great koan solver, but certain ones really stuck with me. And this one, I think, speaks to what we're going to be talking about today. There's a famous exchange between the Chinese master Matsu and his teacher Nanchuan. And Matsu is still a young monk, studying with Nanchuan, and he's sitting very intently, very diligently, and his teacher comes up behind him and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, I'm meditating." He says, "Well, what's the point of your meditation?" And Matsu says, "I'm trying to become a Buddha." Right? So he's sitting very intently, and then a few minutes later, he hears the sound of a scraping sound, and he looks over and asks his teacher, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, and he finds that his teacher has a stone and he's rubbing it against a tile that's fallen from the monastery roof. And he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Why are you rubbing that tile?" He said, "I'm trying to make a mirror." So what Nanchuan is saying to his student is, trying to become a Buddha, you are who you are, everything is how it is. Taking a stone and rubbing a tile is not going to turn it into a mirror any more than sitting diligently for hours on end is going to turn you into what you think of as a Buddha. Right? So that speaks to our topic today, because I've been working with people for many years now, and one of the things I've noticed is so common is the tendency to believe that awakening, enlightenment, spiritual maturity is supposed to look a certain way. We have examples of the Buddha or Jesus or Ramana Maharshi or Mother Mary, or Kuan Yin, or, you know, Nisargadatta, Ajashanti, Muji, all these people we put out there as ideals, as exemplars, and somehow think that we should be like them. And so we pretend or we struggle, make effort to turn a tile into a mirror, right? To turn ourselves into some idea of what a spiritual person is supposed to look like. but but as you can imagine, and as you can tell from the way I'm describing it, that's just another attempt to impose our agenda on life, to try to get things to be a certain way. And it's usually based on what many of us bring to spirituality, which is tremendous self-judgment, self-criticism, perfectionism, shame from the past. And so we come to spirituality because we hate ourselves. We don't like ourselves. We don't want to be who we are. We want to be something else. I remember when I first got interested in Zen and moved out to California to go to graduate school and practice Zen, I had this image of, you know, wearing a long flowing robe and being this kind of really serene, perfect person, you know? You know, I think I held on to that for a number of years, but it was an attempt to escape from the person I believed I was, right? You know, you can spend a whole lifetime doing this, right? We see this in organizations. There are many organizations, ashrams, monasteries, where people are going through the motions, wearing the robes, doing the practices, chanting the chants, in order to become more like some archetypal example of what it's supposed to look like, what an enlightened human being is supposed to look like. You ever been to one of those ashrams where everyone kind of acts the same and looks the same and talks the same? Monasteries can be like that as well. Everyone's doing a good imitation of being a good Zen monk or yogi, right? So you can spend a lifetime doing that. People do. But what it does is it takes us away from our essential nature, which has nothing to do with living up to some example. And so that's brings us back to the quote that I put at on the description of this satsang. The great Hasidic master Zusha saying, in the world to come, God is not going to ask me, why were you not Moses? He'll ask me, why were you not Zusha, right? So what we're really looking for, if we ask ourselves honestly, is we're looking to become more fully ourselves, right? More authentically ourselves. Ramana Maharshi says, just be yourself, right? Just be yourself. Now, what does that mean, right? Of course, you can talk about self at many different levels, okay? So be yourself at every level, huh? That's really what the spiritual journey is about. It's not about being Moses, about being Ramana, and actually Ramana wasn't even Ramana in the sense that Ramana wasn't the person that everyone thinks he was. You know, he was actually very ordinary in many, many ways. So to come home, right? The journey is about coming home to what we've always been, our true nature. Why is it called true nature? It's not called, you know, being a certain way. It's called our true nature. So discovering for ourselves our true nature. It's a unique experience, and it doesn't have anything to do with living up to expectations, right? That we may have or others may have, right? Um, but again, people spend years doing that and criticizing themselves. I'm not calm enough. I'm not centered enough. I still get angry. I still become afraid. I still have passions and desires. I still have aspirations. What about all that, right? Shouldn't I be able to eliminate that? So I think often the early and sometimes later years of a spiritual journey can be involved with the struggle to be different from the way we are. And at a certain point, what often happens is the whole enterprise implodes, right? It fails, right? When we finally realize that no matter how hard we polish that tile, we're not going to turn it into a mirror, right? And quite the contrary, it's about being a tile, whatever we may happen to be, and being perfectly happy and content and embracing reality, ourselves included, just as we are. The third patriarch, ancestor of Zen, Sun San, says to be enlightened is to be without anxiety about imperfection. To be without anxiety about imperfection. In other words, embracing the imperfect nature, not only of ourselves, but of life itself, right? Of everything. And this is where the heartbreak comes in. I talk in my description about heartbreak, and I think it can happen in that way. We struggle so hard to be perfect, to be a certain way. We struggle so hard to get life to live up to our expectations, to have the perfect life. We struggle so hard to get the political situation to be the way we think it should, right? To have the world be the way we deeply, deeply believe it should be, at the deepest core of our being. Our deepest values tell us that people shouldn't treat other people the way they do, and governments shouldn't act the way they do, and presidents shouldn't act the way they do. And finally, we get to the point where we realize that despite our deepest wishes, our deepest expectations, which come from the depths of our being and cut very deep in terms of what we really believe and wish for from the bottom of our hearts, that life just doesn't go that way. And yet, life is perfect in itself. And that realization that perfection in the midst of utter imperfection is, I think, the awakened perspective, the awakened view. Okay. It's not like we don't, turn up the heat when we're cold, or, go into therapy if we're having a hard time with our relationship. By all means, let's do what we can to make life simpler, more harmonious, less painful, less suffering. But at the same time, there's a famous story in Buddhism about a woman who came to the Buddha holding her dead child and crying and saying, Buddha, how can this be? What should I do? It's so awful. There are people in our culture saying, "How could God have done such a thing? How could God have allowed my beautiful child to die?" And Buddha says, "Go find me a mustard seed from a house in which no one has ever died." And the woman goes out and looks for days and days and comes back and says, "I can't find it." So saying that this is the nature of reality. So how do we come to a deep, deep, deep embrace of the way it is? Right? The recognition that there is indeed no mistake, right? Everything is as it is. And we can come, and the ultimate freedom, the ultimate liberation from suffering is not to have a perfect life, not to have children who never die or never die ourselves or never get sick. It's to find the perfection and find the peace in the midst of what appears to be utter imperfection, to see the emptiness of it, the luminous nature, the essentially perfect nature of whatever arises. This is freedom. This is peace, right? So reality doesn't change. Reality is kind of going along in its own perfect, imperfect way. What changes is our view, our experience of reality. We see it as it is. Right? One of my teachers, Suzuki Roshi, says, "We're constantly losing our balance against a background of perfect balance." Right? That kind of says it all. Life is constantly losing its balance. Everyone's constantly losing their balance against a background, against an essence, pervaded by an essence which is essentially perfect, luminous, empty. Okay. But that's a lovely thought. So I think often we need to stumble upon this as a deep, profound recognition. You can hear me say it, but still there is an inner friction that goes on. And that's what I mean by the heart breaking open. Our hearts break open to the recognition that we even though we may know how, or think we know how life should be and how everyone should love one another and be kind to one another, and there should be, everyone should be given what they need, and the old socialist dictum, from each according to his ability and to each according to his needs, to beautiful ideal. And yet life doesn't seem to be functioning that way. It's heartbreaking, I think, from the human perspective. And at the same time, when our heart breaks, it breaks open to a deeper recognition of the way it is. Huh? So I think it's a hard-won insight. I don't think it's easily come by. I'm not pretending or giving you the impression that it is. Yeah. And yet, this is what awakened experiencing, awakened living is like. On the one hand, recognizing the imperfection, doing what we can, as much as we can, to make things better. And at the same time, embracing the way it is from the bottom of our hearts. Byron Katie, who many of you know, tells the story of going around in her early days when she was teaching, and everyone was bowing to her and saying something, and she was bowing back. And people finally asked her, Katie, what are you saying? She said, I'm saying, isn't this what everyone's saying? No mistake, right? No mistake. No, they said, no, Katie, it's namaste. She said, oh, I thought you were saying no mistake, no mistake. So to bow and say, no mistake, no mistake. To bow to life and say, no mistake, no mistake. Next time you say namaste, you can try to substitute no mistake. Huh? So this is the full non-dual realization. See, as long as we think that enlightenment, awakening should look a certain way, as long as we believe that life should be a certain way, we're at war with what is, right? And there's a separation. There's a duality. Right? So the full non-dual experience, the full non-dual view is that there is no separation, there is no conflict. Everything is included, the dark as well as the light, the good as well as the bad, mean as well as the kind. That doesn't mean we don't aspire to kindness. Our hearts naturally, if our hearts are open and available, are moving us toward kindness. But at the same time, there are many people in the world who do not have that experience. And so there's a full embrace of all of it, a full catastrophe, as Zorba the Greek said. This is human life. This is our life. This is life itself. Right? Will it get better in our lifetime? Who knows? Yet, no mistake. So let's open it up for dialogue, questions. I think that opens a rich vein of inquiry. But if you have something else that is pressing in this same general area, which includes everything, direct approach, non-dual teachings, anything you might like to introduce, you can just, how many of you there are? 19 of you, and so it means I could probably see most of you. If you want to ask a question or participate in some way, just come on board. I can see you and ask a question. It's great. I see some of you.
I cannot undo the video thing.
Who is this?
Sabine. I
Sabina.
cannot. Yeah, okay. I cannot get the video going. But here's
okay. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. Here's my question. So the stone and the tile. So is awakening also to be more aware that who I am as a tile?
Yes, fully embracing.
You know.
No, of course, so, we're more than a tile. We're more than Sabina. We're, who we are essentially is consciousness, right? And yet, at the same time, there is this Sabina-ness, right? Which is sort of irreducible. She is the way she is. She likes certain, she likes chocolate instead of vanilla, or, she likes a sunny day rather than a rainy day. This is, how it is here on this human plane. And there's an embrace of that. Yeah, you're not trying to become indifferent,
Indifferent. But I feel sometimes that people have an idea of you, right? And you don't agree with this idea, and you struggle with that because that's how I feel, you know, and then I disappoint people, and then that's a weird experience then, because they didn't really.
Other people's view of you is their problem, not your problem.
So my friend said, they are okay, you are okay. So
yeah, another way of saying it. Yeah. That's right.
But that's hard, because I'm a teacher, and so it's you always have this feeling you live up to people's ideas of you. You know.
That's right, and I think you'd be a better teacher if you didn't try to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really enjoy your meditation, and I had your meditation app, but it disappeared, and I just wanted to let you know that it's not available. It's not available anymore, and I cannot.
I know. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I have your book too, but
oh, very good, very good.
But I miss it.
Oh, thank you, Sabina. Yeah, it's a great question though that you asked, and you know, this thing of being dependent on other people's view of us. Of course, it keeps us bound in certain ways and prevents us from being fully ourselves. Another way in which we prevent ourselves from being fully ourselves. You know, we're not, and if we try, of course, to please other people, since everyone wants us to be different than everyone else, we're, you know, it's endless, right?
Yeah.
So the invitation is to turn the attention back upon yourself and to become more fully yourself, more authentic at every level.
All right, that's my dog who's crying. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. But sometimes what I notice is if you be true to yourself, you actually, people get angry at you and turn away.
That's right. That's right. That may be true, and you may find that new people come into your life who appreciate you the way you are.
Yeah, that I noticed too.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sabina. Yeah. It can be exhausting to try to please other people and ultimately hopeless. We've all done that, right? Try to please certain other people and just exhausted ourselves in the process. Someone else? Yeah, Peter. Hey, Peter. Nice to see you.
Same, really. Long time no see. One tendency I recognize in myself is to deny the value of the individual in favor of some implicit unity that we all share, and to feel the pain of the lack of mutual recognition in that unity.
Right. Yeah, that's essentially what we're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, to live as the infinite in this human body. And I think some of us tend to fall too much, you know, again, too much, but we tend to, you know, we tend to get lost in the universal, you know, and then neglect, you know, or demean or devalue the individual.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then most people, of course, they get lost in the individual, the human, the horizontal plane, achieving, solving, etc., and neglect the universal, the essential. So how do we, you know, it's really important that we fully know ourselves as the essential. This is what waking up is about, which is, you know, what my School for Awakening is about, and, you know, satsangs and teachers have been teaching for centuries, is the waking up to who we are. But then how do we then embody that? How do we live that in a compassionate, kind, sensitive, attuned way? And often it's most difficult with ourselves. You know, we're hardest on ourselves. You know. We can be so kind to our friends and our partners, but when it comes to our own imperfections, we can be ruthless, right?
Yes.
So, but to remember that from the point of view of who we really are, consciousness, awakened awareness, there is no problem. There is no imperfection.
Yeah.
So everything is seen, embraced as a beautiful, perfect expression. You see, consciousness sees no separation from its expressions in form. They're perfect because it's no other than oneself. See? So to really see that everything around you is in fact you. Once you see that, and that includes yourself. And that's the hardest part. You can see the other people and the, the objects in the room and everything. And it's like, oh yes, I'm just really cool and relaxed. But as soon as you make a mistake, right? It's like, wham!
Yeah, you're on yourself, right.
So to bring it into that area as well, the inner critic, superego, whatever we call it, to really illuminate that part as well in the light of awareness.
And then conversely, the other, we're currently traveling across America, and so there's so much that we're seeing that doesn't feel perfect, even if it's imperfection. Here we are right now talking to you from a Holiday Inn in Oklahoma City, surrounded by paved parking lots and shopping malls and excess and guns.
Right, and there's something in us that says, no, it shouldn't be that way. God, it shouldn't be all that traffic, all that concrete, all that, there's something in us just, and how do we, relax into that and just open to that? And it's a beautiful opportunity that you've given yourself to do that, going through middle America, where so much of it may not be aesthetically pleasing. For example, you being an art expert and art historian, and these are not aesthetically pleasing landscapes, right? How to relax into that and open to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Peter.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Is this the person with their hand up?
No, I'm not on video.
Okay. Yes, I'll get to you who had your hand up in a moment. Let's talk with this person here. Who's this?
Okay, Kristen.
Kristen. Okay.
Yeah. Hi. Okay. I've got. Let's see. How do I start here? This happens to me quite a bit. And I don't know how to talk about it exactly, but when I was getting ready to tune into your meditation and talk, all morning I was kind of a wreck, which isn't real usual for me. It happens sometimes. And then, getting the computer turned on, sitting down here, I got real shaky and I just started crying and crying and crying. And my mind says, well, okay, ego says, this is just ego. This is mind that's so afraid, so afraid of being dethroned or something. And pretty much all the way through the meditation, I just was crying and shaking.
Mm-hmm.
And can you help me with that? I mean, I could open to awareness, but I kept being pulled back to, okay, this is what is. This is what's happening. Be with it. But geez, I don't know. It kind of.
Well, yeah, it's hard to know what was stirred up in this situation for you. Do you have a sense of, we want to hang out in, awareness and not pay attention to the content, but sometimes it can be helpful from an aware point of view to, of course, as you know, I'm a psychotherapist as well as a spiritual teacher, and so I combine the two. And it can be very helpful to look from the point of view of awareness, as much as we're grounded in awareness, at the content, what is getting stirred up, and then to hold it with compassion. Right? So, for example, do you have a sense we can hang out together in awareness, and just from this openness to invite whatever was being stirred up to have a voice, to reveal itself.
Yeah. Okay. The thing that as soon as you said that, well, I was feeling like, okay, this is fear. This is a lot of fear coming up. And as soon as you said, give it a voice, this big voice inside says, no, no, no. It's very strong, this resistance. And whenever I kind of go back and forth, but whenever I get more serious about not just living in the illusion, whenever I really want to and kind of commit to open up to reality, it gets really strong. So
yeah, that's true. I remember when I was reading the Don Juan books back in the 70s, Carlos Castaneda. He talks about the rings of resistance to, and the first one is fear. So that's the biggest obstacle. Is fear. The mind is afraid. The mind is afraid of the unknown. It's afraid of losing control.
Yeah.
So there's no way around it. You're going to have to go through that ring or obstacle of fear. That's why regular meditation practice is so helpful. I don't know if you have a regular meditation practice, but I really strongly recommend it. A lot of people teaching the non-dual stuff these days don't incorporate that. Being a Buddhist monk for so many years, even though I left that and woke up later, I do think that it's really helpful to sit quietly on a regular basis, because at least it gives the mind an opportunity to go offline for a little bit. And the mind, or the ego, whatever we call it, becomes accustomed to being offline. It's not so scary anymore. Oh boy, I just spent 20 minutes and I wasn't thinking or controlling, or at least not as much as usual. Then you can kind of ease up to it. Do you sit?
I haven't for a while. It's been several months. What I do, and this is, well, I'll just say what I do and keep my judgment out of it. My self-judgment is I'm awake a lot in the middle of the night, usually for several hours. And so I try to meditate then. I lay in bed and just do different.
Okay. Well, that's good. That's a good time, lying awake at night, in the middle of the night. So let it be really a time to just rest and be aware of your breathing and or whatever, your bodily sensations. But I think it's harder when the mind is suddenly faced with its own potential demise. It's better that it kind of get used to it a little bit, used to the gaps, between thoughts, between identities. And then so it's not so jarring. That's what I would say. But yes, the mind is afraid of its own demise. It's afraid of annihilation. That's the biggest fear.
Yeah.
Control. Yeah.
Pardon? I didn't hear what you just said.
Losing control.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. So, so when that comes up really heavy duty, like it did this morning, is it would I kind of be aware of what's going on and kind of go back and forth between the experience, being very present with the experience, and go back to just the more of a detached awareness? Or
well, be aware of the experience, be present with what's happening, but not get lost in it.
Yeah.
So you are awareness. I don't talk about detached awareness. I'm not encouraging that we cultivate detached awareness. I think awareness and its objects are always one. There really is no separation. We can emphasize the aware part, but there's always an awareness of, you know, I mean, ultimately there is just awareness, but awareness and its objects are one. So-called reality is just an expression of awareness. We can emphasize the aware part, we can emphasize the manifest part, but there is only awareness. So not to detach, but to be with intimately. Huh?
Whew, okay.
That makes sense?
Sorry.
That makes sense?
It does, yeah. It's the not getting lost in it that I think I've always had trouble with.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part.
But yeah, it's
to be with it without getting lost in it, and particularly not getting lost in the story about it.
Yeah, I know.
Because feelings are just feelings, you know. Emotions are just emotions. They naturally, as the name emotion suggests, they come and they go. But what keeps them in place is the story, the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can just experience feelings as feelings and not believe the story, then they're going to go. They're going to just come and go.
Okay. So
because we're believing a story that they perpetuate themselves.
Gotcha.
And so you would probably do well to explore some of the stories.
Well, the big story is just, I guess, what I said at the beginning, that ego doesn't want to let go. Ego, right. You know, and that's, so maybe dropping that and just being with.
Well, that's not a story, that's the truth.
Well,
ego doesn't want to let go. But the story is, what is ego saying that causes it not to want to let go?
Okay, scary, being lost, not existing.
If I let go, then X, Y, Z. That's the story.
Okay, so letting that have its time of expressing itself.
Yeah, you might explore that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the ego, the mind? What do you believe? If I let go, then what? What's going to happen? Right.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a fear of not being able to function in the world. I mean, that's been around for a long time since I've, I've been doing this spiritual practice. It's a big fear because I feel that I have that sometimes come up for me. It's like I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. But I always seem to manage. So, okay.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for sharing that.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Namaste. Boy.
Now to Helen.
I think you answered my question, but let's see. Today I had a hard time. I was running to get here, and I could just feel the fear, and I felt like I was kind of caught in it. But once I got in the car and started driving, I was able to see the wanting mind. I mean, my mind is wanting like every second. And so what I was able to do then was ask myself, how can I relax with this thought? How can I relax with this next thought? And it really worked, but I still get caught from time to time. And that's just normal, right? I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but that's beautiful. Your own little practice that arose naturally. How can I relax with that? That's beautiful.
And I think it came out of struggling with the anxiety of hurrying up. I could see the fear of wanting to be here. I could see the want, but I couldn't stop enough to let it pass through. Do you know what I mean? I was just kind of driven by that fear. I hurried up and got my stuff done and got here. But that's a theme in my life, where the hurry up energy.
And again, there's coming back to our theme, there's an idea of how you should be and how you should show up, and all these expectations and ideas and all of that. And that's what drives the anxiety, right?
Yeah, that I should be calm by now. Maybe.
You should be calm by now. Right? You shouldn't be late. You shouldn't be rushing Whatever. Yeah.
Right. I should be able to be calm while I get to where I have to go. I think that's the big one. And I have huge fear of being late. That's a sin, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But I have to say that your meditation brought me deeper than I normally go. As I was sitting here, my eyes were closed, but when I opened them, it's snowing here in Minnesota, and it was so beautiful because the mind was so still. And that's not an experience I experience a lot. I mean,
Nice.
I was very deep with your meditation, and it was able to bring beauty where I would normally not, my mind would be too cluttered to see the beauty.
Beautiful. Yeah. Meditating with a group or meditating with someone guiding the meditation, it helps us to go deeper generally. So it's a lovely window into what's possible when you sit by yourself. And perhaps next time you sit down, you can come back to that place, just naturally.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, Helen. Thank you. Irene, yes. Well, you got to put your microphone on.
Is that better?
There you go.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed the meditation and the talk. And I wonder, about the relevance of this question, but I keep feeling like I want to ask it. Because you mentioned the term archetype. And I am noticing that actually, I've just been using this term, in that series he's doing.
That's what I've heard.
Collective consciousness. And I'm just wondering, I don't know that I really understand what that is, but I guess behind the question is, I guess, how does it impact myself and how in my spirituality?
How does collective consciousness impact you and your spirituality?
Yes.
I think what we can say is that many of the ideas and beliefs that we have are not ours, particularly. In fact, ultimately, none of them are ours. Whatever ours means, but they're not ours in the sense that we inherited them in our culture. Ways of being, ways of thinking that people should be and act, and there are all kinds of collective beliefs and stories.
I see.
For example, the hero archetype is a particularly Greco-Roman archetype. It may not be quite the same in other cultures. I mean, so these are all collective beliefs and structures.
Oh, and that's what an archetype is too. It's a collective, like, stereotype or something.
Well, of course, the word archetype is used a lot by Jung, right? And these are Jung believed that there are structures in consciousness that are inherited, that we come in with. Ways of seeing the world that structure our reality, that are inherited somehow.
Okay.
And those are called archetypes. The mother archetype, the hero archetype.
Oh, I see.
The martyr archetype, the savior archetype, the warrior archetype. These are all archetypes. They're ways of seeing things that are inherited. That's all.
Okay, within the collective unconscious.
Yeah, shared by the collective. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I frankly don't think that has all that much relevance for us. I know our Ajah's teaching. Ajah seems to have discovered this for himself, which is great. But people have discovered this a long time ago.
Yeah, right.
I'm glad he's discovered it, but you know, it's been common knowledge for you know, decades, if not centuries. So
Right. Right.
you know,
Right.
I think ultimately it's up to each one of us.
Mm.
It's just,
Okay.
I think it's important to just recognize that some of the structures that you come upon don't belong to you. But the fact is, none of them belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you really? You know, who
Right.
you are really doesn't have anything to do with any of that. That's not who you are, right? So it's just another way of identifying, not me, not me, not me. God, that isn't me because that's collective. That isn't me because it comes from my childhood. That isn't me because I learned that from, you know, the culture at large. I mean,
Well, I think that's right, right, right. That's very helpful. Because I guess that's what I started to contemplate. Actually, thank you. That's very helpful because I actually talked to my sister, and what was so interesting was to start to think about that things that I've inherited, beliefs I've inherited, and
sure.
how they, in a sense, were the beliefs of the time. You
Yeah,
know,
the beliefs of the time, the beliefs of the religious tradition you were raised in, the belief, you know, whatever it might be.
right, right. So, yeah, rather than taking it extremely, it was just another perspective. So I
So
was
I think the
pondering it.
shortcut here, Irene, would be none of it's personal.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it feels so personal
That's right.
sometimes.
So
Yeah.
that's the shortcut. Just recognize that none of it's personal.
Regardless of how personal it feels.
Yes, because nothing is personal.
Okay. Okay.
If it feels personal, that's the cause of suffering.
Oh, that is so helpful. There's been so many. Oh my gosh, that actually almost makes me tear because, yeah, I've been taking some things very personally. So, anyway, that's helpful. Thank you. Yeah, that's helpful just in and of itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
great, great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the fact that we take things personally is one of the greatest causes of suffering, you know, self-referentially, we could say. Um, you know, it's not like we don't take responsibility for our actions, but
Right.
but also to recognize that, you know, for example, one of the people mentioned about people not liking her if she acts a certain way. You know, it's like to take that personally, as if that has something to do with me. It's like it's just their point of view. So even at that level. Okay, well, thanks, Irene. Yeah. Well,
Yeah. No, no. Thank you. Yes. Thank you
you're
so
welcome.
much. Yeah. Hmm.
Someone else, Peter, you have your hand up.
Hmm.
Yes, I'm just wondering, now going back to your initial epigraph that you started with. So, what would be the structures that belong to Reb Zuchia?
The structures, I have no idea.
I mean, we say nothing is personal, and yet at the same time, we're trying to be more personal and more who we are.
No, not personal.
Okay,
No, more authentic.
more authentic. So maybe
So
we could talk
the
about that.
words sound as the same,
Yeah.
but personal means that authentic means to allow our natural expression,
Hmm.
allow ourselves to express ourselves in a way that feels most natural and intuitively right in the moment, right? Based on you know, a deep level of connection with ourselves, with our innermost being at every level. Okay, personal means it's about the story.
Yeah.
Right. Personal refers to the story.
Okay.
This doesn't look good in relation to my story. You know, it refers to my story.
Right.
You know, they're criticizing me, and that means something about me. That's all part of the story that we've constructed about ourselves. That's what personal means generally. So we can be fully authentically ourselves, not take anything personally. In fact, I think that's very common. People who are really authentic, you know, don't tend to take things personally.
Right. That's great.
you know, because they're not concerned about that. You know, they're too busy being true to themselves at the deepest level.
That's great.
Does
Thank
that
you.
make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
I have a question on that one.
Yes.
How do you
Who is
handle
this? Who is this?
Sabine?
Sabine,
No, I thought what you said too. That's actually it. So if I don't take it personally and I say something authentic to me, and I feel the reaction of the people, they taking it very personal, even it had nothing to do with them. It was more an expression about me because I verbalized it. And then I'm feeling, and that's when I start to explain and to apologize, and then I
That's right.
feel really bad about me having said that in that situation. So how, if I let that stand and give it to them because they own it, it was their feeling, it wasn't what I intended them.
Right. Right.
Because that's what I feel sometimes. I want to get the balance back. I know the harmonization of
That's right.
what it is.
Right.
And I feel like, oh my goodness, now I have done something again. Well, it was not okay.
Again, you're taking responsibility for it.
That's it, right?
As if you need to do something to make everything better for them.
Yeah.
That's not your job. Your job is to do what you feel and to say and express in the way that you feel is true, authentic, kind, compassionate, whatever, you know, it feels right to you in the moment. You know, and sometimes if you express in a way that doesn't feel true or you hurt someone's feelings, yeah, you say, I'm sorry. But, you know, you're still being as true to yourself at the deepest level as you can. And the more rooted you are in the truth of your being, and the clearer you are about what is authentic, right?
Yep.
The less concerned you'll be about what other people think, because you're kind of grounded in the truth.
Like the tree is grounded in the earth.
You go. Like the tree is rooted in the soil.
Okay.
That's right. Rooted in source. Like the tree's roots go down into source, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That's one of my major themes. And I thought when you said in your meditations once that when these lies are coming up, you know, those stories you tell about yourself and you recognize it and you be the higher level above it and you see them more as a story told and not getting emotional. That's it, right?
That's right. Yeah. Good. Thanks, Sabine.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Aiden had his hand up.
Yeah, Stephen.
Then we'll get to you, Mauricio. Nice to see you.
So I had a question about, I've been, seeking and trying to find this whole awakening thing for quite some time. And it's become quite apparent that there's nothing I can do about it. And you spoke about this in your email about there is nothing you can do, but it's more of an inner attitude that you take. So if you could just speak about that attitude, because from where I'm coming from.
Attitude, you said?
You said it's an inner attitude that you take.
Inner attitude, yes, inner attitude. Yes, I think you have the right inner attitude, which is sincerity, a strong aspiration for truth, not being willing to settle for half-truths, that devotion to truth, that aspiration is the right inner attitude, a strong motivation to see reality as it is, to recognize my essential nature, and then to, put yourself in situations that support that as much as you can. That's something you can do. Beyond that, though, you can't make it happen, right?
Yeah.
I say you can make yourself awakening prone, like you can make yourself accident prone, make yourself awakening prone, but you can't make yourself awaken, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that inner attitude is precisely the right one, the one you have. It's just be patient also.
It's a tough one.
Right.
Yeah,
you want it really deeply with your whole being, your whole heart, and at the same time, you're willing to wait as long as it takes, both.
Okay. Yeah. 'Cause
Does that
I
make
think
sense? Yeah.
it does, 'cause there's that, it's said by teachers that, you can't awaken. You
That's
don't,
right.
you know.
You don't. I mean, ultimately, awakening occurs through you. You can never grasp and hold awakening, but you can be a vehicle for awakening to happen in this lifetime. And you just aspire to that. You read about that, you orient toward that, but then you let go. It's that combination.
To let it go. Yeah.
To let it go. Yeah.
It can be tough if, you really want it. And for me, it seems like a lot of my life depends on it. My career, I almost want to do something
Right.
to help other people for this. And I can't put myself out there and help people if I'm not yet awakened. That just would be.
Well, that's a belief in the story. I mean, also you might challenge that belief. I can't be of benefit to other people until I awaken. Is it true?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you were awake, you'd be of greater benefit, but do what you can.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. I noticed that.
Again, that's a kind of spiritual perfectionism that we've been talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a goal. We got to get there. And once we're there, that's it. But it seems apparent that there's no end to this. It just keeps going.
There's no end to this. That's right. There's no getting there and that's it.
Yeah.
It's endless unfolding. Yeah.
So I'm finding in my meditation that when I sit, I can connect with that space and that silence and stillness, but it's like my nervous system keeps pulling me back, and there's a lot of movement of energy, and so there's like a battle. I'm trying to get to the stillness, but I guess with your meditation, it kind of lets go.
Give up the trying. Give up the trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Effortless effort, right? So
effortless effort. That's what we're talking about here, isn't it? Putting our whole energy into it, but letting go of the result. Wanting it deeply, but also knowing that we can't make it happen. Putting out some effort, but not controlling the out. Whatever it is, it's this paradox that on the edge. How long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this steadily for at least 2 or 3 years. I mean, it initially started when.
Yeah, you have a long, don't worry, you got, just be patient,
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
Give it another 10 and then call me back and let me know.
Oh man, okay. Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's what's being emphasized here is the letting go.
Yeah, when you're young like you, it's like, I want to get it, I want to break through and make it happen.
I feel I have kids. I want to be able to be the biggest influence I can. So,
that's beautiful. That's the right mental attitude. You've got the right attitude. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just hold that attitude. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will.
Yeah, beautiful, Aiden. Yeah, there's no problem. You're on the right track. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. That's great. It's coming from your heart. It's coming from your love. That's the right attitude.
Thank you.
Okay, Mauricio, one more question here. Yeah.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So I'm gonna continue on the thread about kids. Yeah, and my question is something that happened like 2 hours ago, and that I'm curious about. I'm curious and confused in a sense. Yeah. So my son, he's 19, and then he tells me he has a story about how he's procrastinating at university and not doing his work, and then he's not gonna pass. So there is a whole story about how people don't accept him and all that. Yeah, which is in a sense I can see that. Yeah, and so I'm confused because on one hand I see that in the real world. On the other hand, I say because that's a lot of self-judgment. So I say, oh, everything is perfect the way it is. Yeah. So in a sense, your energy is going somewhere else. You're not doing the work you need, but where is your energy? What's life calling you to? Yeah. So, but both are here at the same time. Yeah. In the sense that, he will not pass if he doesn't do his homework. And at the same time, so can you speak a little bit about that? Yeah.
Well, I think you're describing it accurately. You're holding both simultaneously. on the one hand, the reality is, if he wants to get a university degree, he's going to have to pass his courses, right? And on the other hand, maybe he doesn't really want a university degree. Maybe he's pulled in a different direction. Maybe it's the wrong subject for him to be studying. You know, these are things that are worth inquiring into. Absolutely. So you're holding them both, right? I mean, it's perfect as it is. And what is it saying? What is it revealing? Right? And that's what you're looking at. What's going on here? What do we need to pay attention to? And you're supporting him in that process. You know, he's a young guy. He's 19 years old. He's still discovering what's true for him. Maybe he's taken courses that, you know, are majoring in something that he, you know, realizes isn't what he really wants to do. And that's part of what he's at the university to discover, right? So, you know, you support him in that. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, everyone. Well, thanks so much for being together from all of the different places that you've come to be here. And it's always lovely to be here with you. Just to remind you, I do have the School for Awakening, which is a 4-month intensive full immersion program in these teachings starting in January. And you can find information on my website. And I'll also be offering another satsang in a couple of weeks through the Open Circle Center, and that's there's a link on my website. So again, lovely to see you all. Namaste, no mistake, and we'll see you again sometime soon. Okay.
Thank you again. Namaste.
Be well. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.